So, where does all of that leave us? If we're saying that all of our thoughts and feelings arise as part of an internal creative process that's, taking place in our own minds, what are the implications of this in terms of doing difficult conversations more successfully and in terms of relating to the other person in as constructive a way as possible? Well, as I mentioned earlier, dealing with what looks to us like a difficult conversation is going to be more likely to have a constructive outcome if we're in a calm and clear state of mind. Like the air steward's directions when an airplane or before an airplane takes off, if the cabin pressure drops and the oxygen mask appears, always put on your own oxygen mask first before trying to help other people. So, similarly, if you have to raise a difficult issue with somebody, then the greater the level of a calm, objective, kind of open presence of mind you can have, the better. Because in that state of mind, you'll have more clarity, more focus around what it is you want to communicate. You'll be better able to tune into the other person and deal with how they're reacting or responding. And you're going to be more likely to come out the other end with a constructive outcome. Interestingly, far from this being something we have to work hard on, I must calm down, I must calm down. This resilient state of mind is actually our natural state of mind. When we're clear, we're in flow, we're just responding to whatever's arising. And all that ever stops us from being in that state of mind is our own busy, churned up thinking and feeling. So the secret, if there is one, to being in this state of mind is simply realizing the insight that there's a thought feeling system at work in our psychology that's generating our moment to moment experience of whatever is happening, as opposed to the external event itself causing us to have those feelings. And the clearer it looks to you that all that ever is happening in any situation is that thoughts and feelings are being generated, that these will generate a sort of a story or narrative or interpretation of the event, which might be uncomfortable or challenging at the time. When you see that for what it is, then it's much easier to step back from it and let it drop, let the noisy, churned up thinking drop away, let your mind settle down again. All of us have access to that frame of mind, that's able to step back, slow down, be reflective, be resilient, be resourceful about how to deal with problems or perceived problems, that are arising. Our mind's a little bit like a snow globe. Left sitting on the mantelpiece, the snow is settled and you can see the Christmas scene or image through the glass. But if you pick up the snow globe and shake it, what happens, of course, is that the snow swirls around and the whole thing gets very cloudy and you can't see the scene or the image clearly anymore. And that's often what happens for us in the context of a difficult conversation. Our minds kick off a stream of churned up thinking and feelings, which can then cloud up our thinking and tip us towards that more fight, flight, stress mindset. We're irritated, we're frustrated, we get caught up in our memories of the person, or our sense of frustration. Why do they have to be so darn difficult? Find ourselves worrying about the next interaction or ruminating on past interactions. And what's more, our openness and our tolerance of the other person starts to diminish. Our attention and our focus gets drawn increasingly towards their faults and their foibles, and we lose sight of the positive aspects of their personality or our relationship with them. We can very easily fall into a habit then of narrow and judgmental thinking about them and seeing them as a problem person or a difficult person. And, all of this just chips away at our own natural resourcefulness and resilience. And of course, it's going to affect also our sense of goodwill towards the other person. Whereas when we notice the story and the noisy thinking that's arising and just see it for what it is, that thought generated in the moment, normal human reaction that can arise, then we're less seduced by it and we're better able to stay in an optimistic, open frame of mind, which is really our true natural state. So, yes, there are going to be aspects of every situation that are not in line with how we'd like them to be ideally. In the example I gave, the email wasn't in the inbox. That was contrary to my needs and expectations at the time. But all the rest of the story, the mental noise, this shouldn't have happened. Why is he doing this? Why is he so difficult? This isn't good enough. That's not helpful. That's not adding anything of value for me. It's just sending me further into a negative loop and making me feel kind of hopeless and frustrated. Now, I have no control over this thinking and feeling that's going to arise. That's just part of being human. And once a thought arises, it's there. So it's not about changing that thinking, but it's simply seeing, yeah, yes, there's noisy thinking arising, noticing this and seeing that the only useful thing to do now at this moment is simply to let my mind settle. And when my mind settles, I know I'll have fresh ideas about what to do. I'll be feeling calmer, more resourceful. I'll be more open to engaging with clarity, focus, and also goodwill rather than being kind of stuck in reactive, frustrated thinking that's leaking out into my behavior. So from this more, settled mind, you're more open to seeing possibilities, creating solutions, open to having fresh ideas about how to address the situation. And you've more perspective and you're better able to step back and see the bigger picture. You're more in tune with and able to follow your gut or your intuition. And you can be much more present and engaged in the moment in whatever conversations might need to take place. The authors Craig Runde and Tim Flanagan from the Center for Conflict Dynamics in Eckerd College in Florida, they've written extensively about what they term conflict competence for leaders and managers. They outline 7 key behaviors that underpin constructive engagement and positive outcomes in difficult interactions. When our thinking settles down and we're no longer trapped in a narrative or in the grip of strong feelings, we'll find ourselves naturally responding in line with these behaviors. The first 2 of these behaviors, delayed responding and reflective thinking, they're about stepping back, waiting, letting our minds settle, maybe taking a time out if emotions are running high, and then taking time to strategize about the situation and consider what might be the best response. The third is what they call perspective taking. So that's that you actively put yourself in the other person's position, perhaps ask that person questions about their viewpoint, listen to what they say to try and understand where they're coming from. Being proactive and taking initiative, which they term reaching out, and creating solutions. Both of those are about looking forward, looking to the future, meeting with the other person and trying to brainstorm and come up with workable solutions. So you're tapping into each person's innate resourcefulness and creativity to find a way forward. Expressing emotions is about talking honestly, not acting out, and expressing your thoughts and feelings. So you're being real and you're being authentic. And finally, they talk about what they call adapting. So it's that capacity to be resilient and flexible, stay optimistic and hopeful, and not getting bogged down where a situation might not immediately right itself. Just trying to keep those lines of communication open to the best possible extent with the other person and being hopeful about the future. And all of these behaviors will arise naturally for us. The better we're able to avoid or not get caught for too long in a loop of negative thinking, either about ourselves or the other person. The key takeaway here then is to simply see that when these situations arise for you, you're going to have busy, stressful, frustrated thinking and feeling. That's normal, it's human, it happens to everyone. However, if you can begin to see that the only thing that's separating you from the innate well-being, clarity and resilience is our own temporary maelstrom of thought, and that will settle on its own if we let it, then you can bounce back much more quickly. And from this less agitated state of mind, we can then more easily tap into our wisdom and common sense and any new skills or learning that we've gained about how best to deal with the person and the situation.